ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi, it's PK here, host of the new politics podcast, Politics Now. I'll be joined by the ABC's sharpest political minds to break down the biggest stories of the day. It's called Politics Now, and you can find it and follow it on the ABC Listen app.
Even if you've never seen it, it's likely you've heard of it because it's the highest rating show on Australian TV. Married at First Sight has been around for a while, but increasingly the toxic relationships it features are being called into question, with one incident this season being investigated by police. Today, Beverley Wang, host of the ABC's pop culture podcast, Stop Everything, on why so many Australians are drawn to the show and whether it's fit for TV. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal Land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Beverley, MAFS, which for those who don't actually watch it stands for Married at First Sight, it's one of the most popular reality TV shows this country has ever seen.
Yes. So currently MAFS, Married at First Sight, is into its 12th season. We've had MAFS since 2015. I took a look at the TV ratings for last week, Sam. MAFS topped all adult age and audience groups for audience reach and had a total national TV reach of more than 2.8 million viewers. That is massive for free-to-air TV in 2025, a juggernaut.
Yeah, that's on free-to-air TV.
That's right.
With ads.
And it's 4 nights a week, and each episode is an hour and a half long if you count the ad breaks.
My gosh.
It's a big commitment.
I've got to tell you, Beverley, when I'm at the dog park in the morning, there's a lot of talk about this show.
I bet there is. I bet there is. And I think that's part of the attraction, is that it gives you something to talk about and relate to.
It sure does. All right. So it's very popular, but it's also super polarising. And that's what we really want to delve a bit deeper into and figure out, I guess, if it's actually fit for television, this show, even if it can draw such a massive audience.
Yeah, I think that is the critical question. I mean, fitness is such an interesting one because depending on your perspective, you're going to have a different view. It's such a divisive show.
It sure is. All right, so before we move on to some of the details about the controversy, you better just explain what this show is actually all about.
Okay, love to. So what happens in Australia is we have these fake weddings that kick everything off. So first episodes, you'll see brides and grooms rocking up to what looks like a real wedding. And at that wedding, they are meeting for the first time, and they get fake married. And then after that, they're bundled off to a Sydney apartment tower. They get to know each other. They test their chemistry. They meet the other couples. They go through various challenges, like they will swap partners. They will write letters to each other. They'll meet each other's families. They'll visit each other's homes. And then, of course, I think one of the key pillars of the MAFS world are the dinner parties. So every week, if you're watching the show on TV, there will be one episode that's dedicated to the dinner party. And this is where all the couples gather to eat, gossip, confront each other, have arguments, possibly flirt with each other's partners, and maybe throw the occasional glass of red wine at each other. And then after that, you have the commitment ceremony, which is where all the couples rock up again. And couple by couple, they front up to this expert panel of relationship experts where they basically talk through how their week has been and then ultimately decide whether they will continue in what is called the experiment or they will cut their losses and go their separate ways and leave the show.
So why do you think broadly it is gaining such a huge audience?
Look, I think that it's reality TV, right? Dating and relationship reality shows are a pillar of reality TV. We have so many forms of dating reality shows. This is not an accident. We clearly like watching, quote unquote, real people pursue relationships on TV. Maybe this speaks to, this kind of very deeply held idea of having, falling in love and having a happily ever after. There is the kind of the romantic aspect. But I think it also is very entertaining. It's voyeuristic. It's a little gossipy. Sometimes it's outrageous. And let's not pretend that we don't like to watch kind of trashy TV. And I also think that there's a social connection. You like to watch a popular show so you can feel like you're part of a conversation, part of this social fandom. So I think it's not surprising that a show like MAFS is popular, but I think where we're at now with some of the things that we've been seeing happening unfold on this season 12, maybe we need to pause and just assess, what is it exactly that we are watching? And when you have lots of eyeballs on something, there is an inherent endorsement, of popularity, of value that goes with it.
All right, so Beverley, let's turn to that now, to the controversy, because the show has been making it into the news and it has come to the attention of police. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest controversies of the current season was an incident that happened between one of the matched couples, Paul and Karina. And to give you a bit of backstory, what happened was that Karina and Paul were out with another couple. And a song came on in the car they were in. And Karina mentioned that it was a song by a famous rapper who she'd once hooked up with. In the aftermath of that, we learned from their, talking to the producers on the show, that they went back to the apartment. Paul and Karina had a further discussion. Paul said he felt both disrespected and trapped in that conversation. As a result, he punched a bedroom door and left the apartment. So that's pretty serious.
Yes.
We're seeing somebody responding to a distressing situation with physical violence. Yeah. That is not something that can go unnoticed. And so, to their credit on the show, they made a point of disclosing that incident. They didn't show the punch, but they talked about it, that they had both of the couples give their side of the story.
I lost control and I punched a hole in the bedroom door. It's just not the right thing to do. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting, and I'm still hating myself for doing this.
I'm not scared to be in the apartment with him, and he was so upset about his behaviour and what he did. So to be able to recognise the behaviour, and I know that's not acceptable, and I will not accept it or tolerate it, but he understands what he's done.
And then subsequent to that, at the commitment ceremony, they sat on the couch and had it out with the three relationship experts.
It does not matter how disrespected you felt. You do not punch walls. You do not punch doors.
No, of course.
Period. Full stop.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
this is toxic, inappropriate and unacceptable behaviour.
They definitely didn't try to sweep it under the rug, but I think the upshot is that some viewers of the show have been asking and wondering why, in a culture where we know that intimate partner violence is a serious issue and we want to have no tolerance to these kinds of things, why Paul was allowed to remain on the program after that.
Yes.
So in addition to New South Wales Police looking into that incident, we also know that Safe Work New South Wales received a report of an alleged work health and safety issue related to Married at First Sight, and they are looking into it.
Right, okay. And the deeper concern about it as well is that it could be normalising this behaviour in some way, because so many people are watching this show and we don't know how each person is interpreting this behaviour.
That's right. 2.8 million audience, some people are tuning in and they're seeing a snippet of it. They don't see the rest of it. It can be very hard to put context around it. I think they did spend a lot of time around it, and I think that's necessary. But you can't kind of square this idea that, this is not to be tolerated. We don't accept violence. We don't countenance violence. And yet someone's punched a door and they're like, look, give me 3 reasons why you shouldn't leave the show, kind of like a parent might be admonishing a child. And in the back of your mind, you can't help but thinking, yes, they're saying this, but will they really get rid of this couple who are the stars of the season so far?
We want you to succeed, but make no mistake, Paul, You're on notice.
Yeah, and it wasn't the only incident that we've seen of concern.
No, that's right. So there is another couple that is drawing a lot of attention. And actually, back when the cast was announced in January, the Australian newspaper did report that one person was cast to MAFS. This person had faced DV charges, was later acquitted. And so questions were raised at that point about, what kind of vetting does this show engage in if something like this can happen? Obviously, this person was acquitted and said they had their day in court and they have cleared their name and moved on. But, it kind of remains to be seen when you're pairing people together as strangers, ostensibly for the idea of settling into a happy, healthy relationship. Should the person that they're being paired with, should they know? How would they respond to it? There's lots of questions about this.
What has Channel 9 and the production company involved in this, Endemol Shine, had to say?
Yes, so they have responded to criticisms from former contestants about their experience on the show. And they said that both organizations take their obligations to the health and well-being of contestants extremely seriously, that they have access to psychological support during and after the show.
All right. Well, Beverley, ruling out any legal or criminal issues, is it just harmless, trashy entertainment, or do the TV production companies and the publishers really have a responsibility to the community here? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really big question. I think that we are trying to figure that out right now. I think for quite a few years now, there's been a conversation running in the background that doesn't get very much press, which is, should there be better workplace protections for participants on reality TV shows? And this comes back to, is a participant on a reality TV show an employee of the network or production company making and broadcasting and distributing the show? Or are they more like a contestant on a game show, except the game show lasts for a long time, 2 or 3 months on TV, right? And I think if reality TV show cast members were contracted and treated more like employees, hired and paid to do a job, you could arguably see a pathway to establishing better industrial conditions for people who are now considered to be workers. Whether we want to talk about this TV show having a longer life, whether it's like you've asked, whether it's fit for TV, I think there's no easy answer. From the TV network perspective, this is a show that is kind of at the top of its ratings, so it's a winner from that perspective. In terms of how people are treated on the show and the kind of conversations that they can have as a result of watching toxic behavior, I think that's another thing we have to think about. I think there's an argument that it's arguably good to see these kinds of conflicts play out on TV, because then it creates an opportunity to have the conversation with people sitting on the couch next to you, your son, your daughter, your partner, for example, about whether this is acceptable. And I see that, and I definitely accept and understand it. My other question, however, is, can we have these conversations about having healthy relationships without first seeing toxic relationships modeled on TV where people are possibly coming to harm or is experiencing distress? And I would hope that we could have these conversations about what constitutes a healthy relationship and an unhealthy relationship without having to see it on TV first. So I think it's a multifaceted answer. I don't think that there is one single answer to say yes or no. And I'm reluctant to tell people whether they should watch something or not. I can make my choice about, I'll watch it because I want to tune in and find out what the conversation is for my job. Personally, I think 4 nights a week, 90 minutes a pop, is a little much for me. So I'll probably rely on the recaps.
For research purposes.
Absolutely,
Beverley.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, well, happy watching.
Yes, thank you. And to you too, Sam?
Now and then.
Now and then, yep.
Now and then.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation, Beverley.
It's a good, maintain a balanced and healthy TV diet, just like you would with your, the food that you put on your plate.
Beverley Wang is the ABC's national culture correspondent and host of the Stop Everything podcast. If this episode has raised any issues for you, 1-800-RESPECT is a service that can help. That's 1-800-737-732. In an emergency, call 000. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed. Audio production by Adair Shepherd. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.